Hey guys, welcome to the channel. In this video I want to talk about the release of Kill Team Typhon, some of the potential dramas that might surround the pre-order itself, as well as what's in the box. The box has been announced for pre-order on Saturday, and I do want to touch on I want to touch on some of the drama surrounding that pre-order towards the end of the video. I think I don't want to front load drama. I'd rather discuss the fun stuff. What's in the box, the value, and things like that, as opposed to possible problems with the release. So I'm gonna sort of whack them at the end of the video if you're interested. But for now, I'd just like to sort of break down the box itself, and what comes with it, as well as what its potential value is. So, as we can see here, the box itself contains all the accoutrements, all the bits and bobs that you would usually associate with a Kill Team release this season. Obviously a rule book itself with the narrative missions and the layouts and stuff like that in it, as well as the rules for the team, the data cards for the teams as well. Obviously, this is kind of like a sort of notch on the value ladder, if you will, because the cards themselves sold separately, are fairly pricey for what they are. The two teams, so in this instance we got the Ravenors, which are kind of like mini Trigons, if you know what they are, from the Tyranid line. They're sort of infiltrating Tyranid warriors. They got snake bodies and shovel claws and stuff like that. Pretty cool. And then we've got the Mechanicus battleclade, which is a kind of really weird vanilla sort of Mechanicus unit to include. However, it does come with a leader and a sub leader, in the sort of form of the techno archaeologist and the his little buddy, his little apprentice. Kind of reminds me of the Hyrotech Circle. It might be interesting. I think the rules will certainly make that team. But for me, one of the kind of underlying stars of the show, if you will, is the terrain itself. The narrative terrain for me really hit the mark this time. We seem to get 15 individual pieces. It's a good haul in terms of terrain. And if you don't have a lot of terrain, scatter can be one of those things that's kind of annoying to come by. So yeah, I think the box itself looks like a strong sort of installment in the edition. The prices have been rumoured. We'll go through that again in a little bit. Whether the value of the box itself hits the mark for you will probably depend entirely on your interest in the teams themselves, as well as how much you value all of those sort of peripheral how much you value all of those peripheral elements. Firstly, I'm going to run through the Ravenors. The Ravenors are a brood of aggressive bioforms that can tunnel through terrain to ambush their foes, and the kill team comprises of 4 specialised Ravenors led by a Prime. The actual 40k data sheets have been published, not leaked, published by Warhammer Community now. The only sort of specialist within the kill team that has its own fully realised sort of loadout, I suppose, is the Venom Spitter, and it's called a Venom Bolt. It's kind of a heavy flamer equivalent for the Tyranids. I'm really interested to see how the Venom Bolt will be realised in the game of Kill Team, because we don't get that many sort of heavy flamers, and usually flamers are one of those things that are kind of overlooked in the game. Torrent is useful, and it's definitely useful in Into the Dark, where you get the 5-up lethals and stuff like that, but often it's very hit or miss. So I'm very interested to see how the Venom Spitter is realised in Kill Team. The other stuff, the other loadouts in 40k are kind of illustrated or realised using the lethal rules. So lethal against infantry or lethal against tanks. I'm not a big 40k guy nowadays, so I'm not up on all the rules and stuff like that. But I imagine the things like the crushing claws are going to be better at tin opening armor. and things like that. So that will probably translate in a more granular way in Kill Team. So maybe the Crushing Claws will probably have AP2, maybe, given there's only 5 guys, maybe AP1, and high crit damage, something like that. So yeah, these are technically the hyper adapted Ravenors, which is kind of their way of getting around the fact that Tyranids don't have character in the same way, a sapien or a sort of a sentient team has in its own right. So hyper adaptation is the way they've gotten around that. I do think it's pretty smart. I think it works. There was a really really old Kill Team conversion done by High Fleet Moloch. It was like red Gene Stealers, literally from the early 2000s. That Kill Team was realised in much the same way. Each of the Gene Stealers in the Kill Team had their own kind of specialisation, venom sacs or whatever. So it's really cool to kind of see that realised in a product for Kill Team so many years on, Oh yeah, you also get the 10 Hormagorn MPOs. Obviously, again, whether this provides value to you as an individual will largely depend on whether you ever intend to use the MPO missions in a Kill Team sense. However, they're lovely sculpts, brilliant, brilliantly dynamic, Raptor-esque sort of sculpts, and I think you won't have any trouble kind of dumping these on eBay. Certainly, if you sold them at a slight discount, no problem. They'll fly out. But again, I think a running theme for this box particularly will be how subjective value for money is in terms of the release. So the other team in the box is the Mechanicus battleclade. The battleclades are groups of 8 servitors outfitted for combat and exploration, led by a servitor underseer who relays messages to the rest of the crew as directed by the more learned techno-archaeologist. It's a 10-man kill team with a somewhat standard structure. So we kind of get the stuff we're used to. We get 2 gunners, we get heavy bolters, kind of semi-Volkite weapons as well. We get a breacher. We've seen breaches before, kind of usually got a power fist, things like that. We get a medic. Obviously, medics do medic things. And then we got the auto proxy, which we can assume is going to be their comms equivalent. However, we do get the sort of leader and sub-leader archetypes within the team. This is kind of harkening back to the Hierotech circle, I think. And it will be very interesting to see if the team itself has tricks in regards to line of sight and stuff like that. I would like to see the Brood Brothers stratagem utilised in this team as well. So it's kind of like one model can use another model's line of sight to determine a valid target. And what that means essentially is they could like link into each other's heads and use the new spheric network to kind of take advantage of being linked to each other and take shots that usually wouldn't be able to be taken. I think that could be that's a strong candidate for a stratagem I think that they should be making use of, and it would be that those kinds of stratagems, those kinds of sort of combined arms, sharing of resources, in multiple veins, combined with the ability to manipulate APL, which has already been touched on in the in the previews, that would make them an interesting team. And I certainly think that this team, which has such a like vanilla porridge kind of core theme, servitors are like the most vanilla thing in 40k, really, aren't they? I think they need those kind of very outside the box interesting rules to sell the team itself. I think it's necessary, basically. Another thing I'd like to touch on is the techno-archaeologist model. Now, it's a reused model. It's a very nice model. I am looking forward to getting it and painting it and stuff like that. But I'm hoping, like, fingers crossed, just as they've taken the leader and the sub leader archetype from the Hyrotech Circle, we get other sort of other leaders that we can bring into the team. I think it'd be an interesting way again to create, diversity of play and create interest in an otherwise very bland theme. So maybe seeing the Manipulus and the Magos from the wider Mechanicus line could really create a more interesting dynamic, essentially. So we can't talk about the box itself without talking about the huge amount of narrative terrain we get in the box this time. It's the final upgrade pack for the Volkers kill zone this season. A little bit of a strange tangent to be going on. I think it to have all Imperial terrain throughout the release and then just drop a load of Tyranid terrain right at the end of a season. A little bit of a strange tangent, sort of a little bit of a strange tangential way of doing it. However, we did get Tyranid terrain out of it, which is something that a lot of people have been asking about for a long time. Personally, I love it because it pays homage to the original Forge World line of terrain. So if you haven't checked out the Amphalion project, check it out. I mean, the base itself, the old resin base, was really, really cool. Far out my my price range and stuff like that. But you can get good STLs which mimic it and things nowadays. You should check that out anyway. But critically, for this release, it looks like we get 2 sprues of terrain mirrored based on the promo image. Obviously, as you can see here, we get multiples of the egg sacs and multiples of the spore chimneys and stuff like that. And they've just been assembled in slightly different ways. So I think 15 individual pieces of terrain is pretty good, and for me, really bumps up the value. Now, £100 worth of value, that is the rumoured sort of, that is the rumoured final price for the box. Does, for a kill team box, £50 a team? If if you're not interested in anything else, you just want to play the core competitive game of kill team, it's £50 a team. Really, really worth the money. Obviously, you can buy the box, you can sell the extras, the Hormagaunts, the terrain, the cards, the team you don't want if you only want one team, and so on. But it's a lot of faff, So for me, I think this box's value is very, very subjective. I mean, it always is, obviously, because if you only like one team, then you're only ever going to get 50% value out of a box, aren't you? But this is especially so because of the sort of weight of narrative terrain that you're getting. However, if you do like that side of things, if you do like the MPO system, if you do like the narrative terrain and stuff like that, I think that the weight of terrain combined with the fact that the cards themselves will obviously tie into the terrain, it will create a lot of value in that regard. I also wanted to touch on the sort of peripherals as well. So obviously you get your data cards for your teams, your narrative cards for the campaign book, and your tokens. If it makes a difference to anyone, weirdly, you only get 1 token sheet in this book. In the other releases, you got 2 token sheets. Maybe that's just because the teams themselves aren't reliant on sort of map-based placing the tokens and stuff like that. However, if it makes a difference to you in terms of value, you do only get the 1 sheet, it looks like. The narrative cards, I think, in this release kind of hold a little bit more value than they usually would, purely because of the amount of narrative terrain that you get. So if you're into one, you get a lot of use out of it. You get a lot of enjoyment out of it because it's linked directly to all those little bits of sprue that you get as well. And again, obviously the data cards themselves, that they give you a little £10, £15 bump in value, which might tip you over the edge in regards to buying in on half a box. Maybe obviously if you can negotiate with your sort of your box partner, then you might be able to only pay £40 for the team, in which case the team and the cards for £40 is a lot more appealing than the 50. As I said earlier, I did want to discuss some of the kind of drama, I suppose, around the release itself. I was on Reddit, which is probably the worst place you can go for any kind of news. It's just like a doom echo chamber. But already, even though the announcement only went up today for pre-orders next week, we've got scalpers posting various sort of pre-order, basically pre-orders, and there's a lot of buzz online about the Ravenors themselves, and there's a lot of talk about how popular the box is going to be. But I just wish there wasn't this anxiety for everyone around getting a box. I mean, I usually get a box because I've got a good friendly local game store. I've got several good friendly local game stores near me who can secure pre-orders and stuff like that. But I just think it's a shame that we are living in a day and an age where people are just trying to turn a buck, trying to make money on what is supposed to be like a silly little hobby about painting men, painting little army dudes. Like, come on, guys. So I'd just like to say, if you do want your copy, make sure you get online on the Saturday, quarter to 10, stuff like that. Have your multiple tabs open for your various sources. If you're going to buy it online, have the Games Workshop website up as well, because they tend to have a little bit more stock than everybody else and don't sell out as quickly. But it's just a shame that it's kind of come to this. It's a shame that the scalping has become such a kind of a common occurrence, I suppose, around any release which has got any kind of popularity. However, as a Tyranid main in 40k and a Kill Team shill, I will be buying into the release if I can get hold of a copy. I think the box is good value if you are at a minimum kind of play with both teams or get use out of both teams. Certainly my deep love for the Tyranids and the Amphalion project and stuff like that has got me very excited about the box. I'm hoping to buy a few more sprues off eBay maybe, and hopefully we can get some cheap Hormagaunts as well. Brilliant models. I love those kind of raptor-esque dynamic poses. So in conclusion, guys, beware of the scalpers. Try and secure your copy if you want one. However, one of the positives I think about Games Workshop's current release schedule is you'll only be waiting a quarter. You'd probably only be waiting maybe October, something like that, before you can buy these models individually. And I certainly wouldn't fret about proxying and things like that. The Tyranid line have got sort of mini lictors. They're called the Von Ryan's Leapers, and if you can't get hold of Ravenors, wait the 3 months out. If you can't get hold of Ravenors, wait out the 3 months. People aren't going to mind you using some proxies just for now. So in conclusion, I hope everyone gets their copies. I hope the scalpers don't win. Don't buy off the scalpers as well. That's another thing. I hope you enjoyed this little breakdown of the box, guys. I am a very small channel. I'm only just starting out, so it'd be brilliant if you could subscribe and maybe give the video a like. Cheers. Thanks for your time.